Thanks, Emily. So basically what we'll do as a flow goes is we'll describe some of the pain points that Virtru email encryption handles from a state and local government standpoint, describe and give a bit of details on what Virtru does, but the most important thing to understand Virtru is actually see how this technology works in your email environment. So what we see from when I'm speaking to state and local governments are really areas of common concern with regulatory compliance, as well as we modernize our systems, how do we handle our data that we're used to housing within our local environments? Specifically around this, when we're dealing with healthcare regulations such as HIPAA, or criminal justice regulations around CJIS, these have specific requirements on how you handle and share data. As we digitize these customer records and our records, how do we handle those and making sure that they are only accessible by these certain individuals. The most common use case that we see in the pain point is our customers will migrate or upgrade into a cloud environment, such as Google Apps for Work. This is an entirely new compliant environment that introduces new security risks and how to handle that. But as an IT organization, we're only being asked to do more with information and make it available and accessible to our people. So this really boils down to three specific areas where email and file encryption come into play. The first one I mentioned was around compliance. So how do you handle your patient data from a health and human services standpoint? When I have my Department of Corrections, how do we handle the criminal justice information or acts around that? If I'm a university, how do I handle student data? So all of these have specific implications when I'm sharing or using this type of data, and email and file encryption definitely helps with that. From a privacy standpoint, the question becomes who can access these specific records? Legally, this becomes a specific area for CJIS compliance, but if we're in a cloud system, can those cloud providers access this? In this case, Virtru email encryption will allow you to protect the content so that only you and your recipients are able to handle that. And then finally, the enhanced data security aspect that are most common are as we are handling, again, those most sensitive, that 5% of information in your environment that you do want to protect around your legal, finance, or HR data. So what Virtru does is we provide encryption technology that integrates directly within your email and Google Drive experience. So in this case, either directly in your native Gmail experience or directly in your Outlook experience. So encryption's been around a long time, but what we strive for is to be native and give a feeling for that you don't have to be a technical or an IT person to use encryption technology. When you use Virtru technology, you have added capabilities of owning your own encryption keys or managing that. This allows you to do additional things such as revoke emails that have accidentally been sent out, or expire them to expire after a certain time, or disable even the forwarding of those emails. So encryption may be the primary use, but our technology allows an additional layer of control over your environment. As we highlighted before, a key aspect around compliance is that third parties do not have access to your content. This technology allows for that. The final piece to highlight in this slide, and we'll see all of these pieces, is that we have digital loss prevention rules that will automatically detect those most sensitive items and require that you encrypt those emails before they go out of your client. So how does this specifically apply to cities and counties? So as we would expect, the people that are handling the most sensitive data are the people that this technology is most applicable to. So whether it be patient data going out through social services or your HR, or health and human services, or your specific human resources data is related to you as employees of a county or a city. So another common use case is around public defenders' offices, as you have e-discovery requirements that you assure that from a public defender standpoint that you do not have the attorneys or your client data being protected. Ensure that that is not accessible to anyone other than the people who have privilege. And then finally, the most common one is around police or Department of Corrections, around your CJIS data. So I want to give you a specific examples of a couple use cases of people who are actually doing this. So the first one is the county right next to me, and I live in Boulder County. This is in Broomfield, both a city and a county in standpoint. So their pain point was specific around as they migrated to Google Apps. So when they migrated to Google Apps off of their on-premise infrastructure, new requirements basically started coming up on how do I protect my patient data, my privately identifiable information, or my criminal justice information. So by enabling or using Virtru encryption technology, a lot of those concerns around the access and control of the data points became immediately handled when implemented in their cloud environment. One of the earliest customers around Virtru encryption was Pitkin County, also in Colorado. Similar requirement. When I'm in my cloud email environment and I handle that, how do I handle HIPAA compliance around this, around my patient data? So both of those examples, both Broomfield and Pitkin, are really around, as I mentioned, that cloud migration. As companies move to the cloud or its organizations are in the cloud, how do I handle that most secure data? So how Virtru helps in this specific case are in three specific areas. And this is what I'm going to show you now, is basically how Virtru encryption works and what is the user experience for your user sets. So the first thing I'm going to highlight is that this is an easier approach to encryption than you may have used before. So the most common usage of encryptions around public key encryption, like PGP or S-MIME, that people have used when they're sharing data. Great technologies, but not very easy to deploy and use for your non-IT users. As we deploy our technology, the next thing that we're going to focus on is showing you how this is a more secure environment for that most sensitive data, so that only authorized parties can access the content, and explain what that means and actually show you how that works. And the final thing is how our technology allows and provides more control over your email and file environment that you don't have in traditional controls. So now, rather than going through a bunch of decks, let's actually show you how this technology works. As Emily mentioned, if you have any questions that come up throughout this, we're going to have a Q&A session. Please type those into your GoToWebinar control panel in the questions section. Okay. So what I'm going to show you is how to send secure emails from our Virtru clients. And the first thing you're going to notice about a Virtru client is that this is your regular email environment. So a Virtru client, when I send a new email, is directly integrated into your email environment. So I'm going to send a message from Microsoft Outlook, and then I'm going to show you how you send and receive messages if you're in a cloud provider like Google Apps for Work, what those experiences look like as well. But really, all you need to do to send a secure email is turn Virtru on. And now, at this point, anything that I send from an email standpoint is secure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send an email to two individuals. I work at a company called Virtru Privacy, so I'm going to send an email to my coworker, I'm a secure at Virtru Privacy. And I'm going to also send an email to an individual named new to Virtru, someone who doesn't use my technology, use Virtru, but is outside of my organization. Now I'm going to go send some patient info, and basically this may be a case where I need to go share some specific information about Sam Rockwell that may be from a community care standpoint, someone I need to. I'll also include a PDF file and an attachment as we have. But what you'll notice here, when I want to send an encrypted email, all I'm really doing is basically hitting the Virtru button on with the Virtru client, and then using my regular email environment. And that's it. I don't have to have the registered user. I don't have to have public keys. Basically, the technology will handle all of that key management for you and allow you to control that. So I hit the send button, and it's popping up that encrypting button. And what basically is happening is that is basically encrypting the email on the client and sending it out directly to those two individual users. So it was a very quick step as that happened there, but what actually happened is before that email ever left Outlook, it encrypted the attachment as well as that content before it's sent to those two individuals. So at this point, on my Exchange servers and then those two accounts on their mail servers, those are only encrypted files or encrypted email messages. You must use Virtru to decrypt those messages, and I'll show you what that looks like. So sending an email, very easy, and we want to make that same receiving experience just as easy. So I'm going to go log in as both of those users. The first one was the individual that worked at my company, and that was the I'm a Secure at virtruprivacy.com. So this individual is all on Google Apps as we look within there. So I'm going to go log into their web in Chrome, their browser. You'll notice I have the Virtru client installed because this is a Chrome extension that basically is logging in and allows you to hook directly within your Gmail experience. So in this case, I'm going to go click on the message, and again, this will now only decrypt the message on this local client. So since I have the Virtru client installed, you can see now it decrypted, and in our native experience, I have the ability to go view that message. I can even go view the PDF that I have or download and decrypt that PDF. This will allow me then to manage and view this just like any other email, and for any of the content like there, I can go validate that, basically go read the PDF files or Office attachments or scans or whatever the case may be. It's really attachment agnostic in that case. So here's the PDF file that we're decrypting, again, locally only on the system as we go across, that has the medical treatment authorization form. So very easy. Obviously, if you have the Virtru client, very simple, and we want to make sure that that is easy for you to use. But the other environment is, what if a person doesn't have Virtru installed? So that was that other person, the individual new to Virtru at gmail.com. So in this case, we have the person, as I log in as new, I have an email in here, and what you're going to see is very different from this experience is an introduction message that's customizable by the domain or by the sender. So basically, it's an introduction indicating that you have a secure email and has been sent to you, and we provided a web link that will allow them then to decrypt it. So we don't require you to install a client, create a user ID, or anything like that. So just to show you what this message actually looks like, so this is indeed an encrypted message. So I'm going to show you the actual encrypted message, and all the user is seeing is, yes, that introduction message that we saw that was in plain text, but the bulk of the content is actually all just ciphertext. So since they don't have a Virtru client installed, they need to be able to decrypt that content. And that process looks like this. So I click the unlock message, and we're going to do two things. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to validate that that person is a authenticated user, so that we can say, we're going to go use authentication to say that new to Virtru, number one, is who they say they are, that this message hasn't been intercepted in the transmission. So I'm going to go validate that user, and since I am in a web environment, I have OAuth from Google to go log into. So if I have OAuth or SAML or OpenID, I can use those mechanisms to go log in. If I'm on an on-premise server, then I can use a send email that will send an email that will go validate to those users. So once I authenticate this user, then what we're doing is, again, this is encrypting or decrypting only on the local client. I have launched a secure reader environment that is a HTML5 application that will do the decryption in place. And even since these aren't Virtru users, will allow them to reply or reply to all directly within here and view those email as they do. So this will work obviously within any browser experience. will also work on your mobile phones if you're receiving these without having a Virtru mobile client. So sending and receiving, very, very easy from this standpoint. Number one, it's easy. Number two, it's secure. Only encrypted data is going across. But as a product of all of this technology, you have that level of control of your email environment that you do not have with a regular email. I'm going to highlight some of those details now. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go back to the user. So this was Brett at virtruprivacy.com, and I'm going to go right into my sent email. And this is the email that I just sent that we're viewing up here on the right as one of those receivers. Okay. So what you'll notice in this email is you have, when I have Virtru installed and I send this, you have a couple capabilities on email that you're sending above and beyond just sending that encrypted email. So the first one is if I accidentally sent patient information out to an email address that may be autofilled, the first thing I would want to do is prevent that thing from being accessed. So when I do that, I can hit the revoke button, and the revoke button will allow any of those emails to immediately be revoked. So when I hit the revoke button on the right up there, basically access to any open email environment now is revoked. So the other user I had that was up as well was the I'm a secure user. So whether you're in our web environment or whether you're in the environment that we have here, you have the ability then to revoke access to those emails as they're in place there. So as these users also, if you don't need to specifically revoke the emails as they've been sent, you also have the ability to do things such as setting expirations or disabling forwarding as well. And this becomes critical, again, for those most secure environments as we have. So one of the things to note here is within all of this environment, you also have the ability to see the emails that have been sent and see from a level of control as a regular user all of the emails that have gone out within your environment. So for instance, one of the characteristics that we saw here is, let me go remove that search, and I can go see that same email within the Virtru dashboard environment and see a few other things that are available within these control functionalities. So the first one that we're going to notice is I'm going to go click on that email that I sent from a patient info standpoint. And the first thing I'm going to see is that I sent those to the two individuals. I'm a secure new to Virtru, nothing new here. It was sent 8 minutes ago. But I have a read receipt indicating that these emails have been accessed and read. Very important from if this is patient data related to a HIPAA requirement. So for instance, if you accidentally sent out something that is privately identifiable, you have the ability to see if anybody has accessed that content, and if they haven't accessed that, and you have chosen to revoke that message, you won't necessarily need to report on that violation. So for any item that has not been read, you can see that an item that hasn't been read looks something like this. So I have an encrypted email, and I could say it was sent 6 days ago, and that was indeed unread as we go through there. In the same environment, you can see if an email has been forwarded and who it's been forwarded to and how it's been accessed. So in this environment, what we have here is we look for any emails that were forwarded. Now we can see specifically in this forwarded rule, you can see the original recipients of the emails as well as the entire chain of who's been sent and accessed those emails. So in this case, I'm a secure was that user that we saw before. They sent it to Brett at Virtru, and then we sent it down a specific chain to, in this case, 5 levels deep that has been accessed. So in this case, if this is, again, leaked out of my environment, I can choose to revoke specific aspects of that, revoke the entire message, or disable forwarding as we go through there. So all of these are very user-driven controls. These are controls that I have that allow you to control environment as you're sending new emails or as you're in the emails that you have already sent. We also have a level of administrative controls over your email environment that prevents data from leaking from your environment. So in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep Virtru Encryption off. And so when I have Virtru Encryption off, this is just an irregular email. So I'm going to try to send that same patient info, and I'll type that in. And as we go there, and again, Virtru Encryption's off, when I try to send this email, the administrator has set up a specific rule to detect potentially privately identifiable information, in this case a social security number, and the administrator set this up to warn the sender and recommend that they send this securely or handle that. So if I send securely, then this would go off and it would encrypt the email going off. So the level of control is above and beyond the individual users, and if we go back to that dashboard environment and go back and look at the organization mode, so this is the administrative interface, this will allow the administrator to set up those fine-grained controls of the data before it's ever leaving your email client. So the pattern we hit was a social security number, and the administrator of our domain set this up as a warning. We could have automatically encrypted those emails by choosing the encrypt email option here. You can trigger off of things like keywords. So if the word confidential pops up in our message, we could automatically encrypt those. If you're sending to a specific domain, so if you have a partner that you are interacting with, that you're continually providing information around that you need to protect, you could automatically or warn or encrypt those. Additionally, you could choose finer grained controls with full and or logics that will do things like if our email body contains patterns or matches a pattern. We've seen the two actions of warning and encrypting, but we will also see activities such as adding to or CC recipients if you have indexed mail that you need to send indexed inbox recipients to. You can add contents like a warning message or a public disclaimer when emails go out of my environment, or choose to strip attachments that may be sensitive as we go across there. So this level of control that we have is above and beyond just the individual users, but gives the administrators fine-grained controls of your email environment as you're sending those. So we've shown you a lot around email encryption, how you handle this in a secure environment and you're going through. All of this technology is naturally to move forward into your files as well. So as you're moving into modern file storage, the next step we're taking this technology is building this directly within Google Drive. Since we're a Google Apps for Work partner, Google is a key relationship as we have there, and the next foray of our technology is directly within Google Drive. So what this environment allows you to do is allows you to provide that same secure protection of your files within your Google Drive experience. So this, again, we want to make this as easy to use as possible. So when I have a Virtru client installed, when I choose new, I can do a secure file upload as opposed to a regular file upload. So when I do a secure file upload, then I have the ability then to choose to encrypt that file, again, locally on the machine, and then we'll insert that file. Looks like I already had a copy of it. So now we have two copies. But in this case, this now allows you to, everything that is now chosen to be encrypted as it's been uploaded, now has a file extension of .tdf. So this represents by the lock and the trusted data format, the TDF, that this file now is encrypted locally in the Google servers. Now in the Google Drive experience, as you would share a file just as I regularly would. So again, I could go share this, for instance, to ima.secure@virtruprivacy.com, just using the regular Google Drive sharing environment. But now what they have is we have basically allowed them not only to view the file, but access the file. So for instance, if I wanted to revoke access, I could choose to do that. I have the ability to tag items or in this case, disable re-egg sharing or setting specific access expirations for those. So now again, as we're storing our most sensitive information, and you may have regulatory compliance around these, allows you again to directly within your Drive environment. So from a Virtru perspective, we focus our technology on 3 specific things. We're easier to use, easy to share encrypted content with any users inside or outside of your organization. We provide a higher level of security above and beyond your regular server security. We provide more control of that environment. So now I'd like to open it up for questions. Emily, do we have any questions that we'd like to answer that's coming from the group?
Yeah, we have a bunch. We'll start with this one. For DLP, are you primarily searching for keywords, or do you use regex detection as well?
Yeah, we're actually using a combination of both. As an administrator, you can choose on specific keywords or proximity of keywords, but more often than not, like those social security patterns are all regular expressions, so you have full regex control to do that scanning.
Great. How is Virtru licensed?
So Virtru is licensed on a per user per year fee. So our standard pricing is $60 per user per year. For those folks in Colorado that are on the phone, you can contact SIPA for that, or also you can reach out to the contact information for folks that are out of Colorado for that information to talk about specific pricing and your needs.
Great. You mentioned Google Apps, but only MS Outlook versions. Do you also integrate with Outlook and Office 365?
So at this point, we are finishing up our integrations within Office 365, which includes the Outlook environment. Those will be out and available in Q4. So our current clients are indeed our Google Apps for Work, as well as Microsoft Outlook that are primarily used against Exchange servers today. Office 365 is right around the corner.
Great, thank you. Is there any additional overhead for on-prem servers when encrypting messages?
Interesting question. So the short answer is no. All of the encryption is end-to-end encryption, therefore the encryption is actually happening on the client. So the actual encryption overhead is happening in your Outlook or your Chrome or Firefox browsers before the email is being sent. And then it looks like a regular email to your Exchange or your mail server experience.
Great. Does the encryption work with OneDrive as well as Google Drive?
Not at this time. So again, just similar to the Office 365, our first start from the Drive will be for e-file encryption is starting within that Google Drive experience. From there, OneDrive as well as the common usages are around Box and Dropbox. Those are on our roadmap but not currently supported.
Okay. Google Vault, are Virtru messages decrypted for e-discovery within Google Vault?
Yeah, that's a really important question as you understand how encryption technology works in your environment. So since these emails are sent off encrypted, all that Google and Google Vault is seeing is encrypted content. So what we've done to handle that is we've actually patented some technology that will still allow you to do keyword searching within your Google and Vault environment to handle your e-discovery needs. So what this is effectively is doing is providing encrypted keywords to your email messages that will allow your Google Vault administrators to then subsequently search in your email environment to look for both encrypted and unencrypted content. Another common use case is for Google Vault administrators to export entire cases or holds into an inbox file. And we also have tooling that will allow them to decrypt any messages that are in those as well because naturally, since Google is storing those encrypted messages for your e-discovery needs as you export those, we provide a bulk decryption technology for those administrators to request keys on behalf of your organization.
Okay. Given changes in browsers recently in terms of support for plugins and for HTML5, are you fully functional for Virtru clients and non-client recipients across all browsers?
So for Virtru clients specifically, those would be when you're sending experience. We support versions of Chrome and Firefox currently. We do not have a client for legacy Internet Explorers. You mentioned in the question around the senders around all of the changes around HTML5, and the exciting one for us is the plugin architecture for Microsoft Edge. As Microsoft updates their environments, they're providing and updating a new plugin architecture that we will be hooking into as well, but not currently supported. From a reading experience, we are not browser dependent there. So you could use Safari, you could use Safari Mobile, Chrome Mobile, any Internet Explorer, anything around that that is according to the current operating system support. So for instance, we won't support IE7, for instance, but any supported browser we do testing under for receiving.
Okay. I've got a really good one here. Can I keep an email from going outside a specific domain? For example, if I send it to state.colorado.us domain, they could forward it within that domain, but not to their Yahoo or Gmail addresses. So it looks like they're trying to keep everything in.
Yeah, so for those specific things, so right now from a DLP standpoint, from a data loss prevention, we do not have the capability to do that. So we have the capability to force encryption within that environment, but we do not have the ability, as it stands today, to actually prevent the message from going out of your domain. That being said, we've heard this feature request before of some of our state customers, and it's something that we're looking from a development roadmap standpoint to actually prevent those messages from going out within the Virtru DLP. That being said, this is a common use case where you would use the Virtru DLP in combination with any DLP that you may already have within your mail servers. So a lot of those domain controls may be used in conjunction with any DLP rules that you may have set up from a mail routing standpoint. For instance, if you're a Google Apps for Work customer, they have mail routing rules that will allow you to trigger rules and quarantine emails based off of conditions. And that may be a good example where you use that today where Virtru does not provide that capability.
Okay, great. We've got some more questions coming in here. If I license several clients, is there additional cost or infrastructure required to administer Virtru for my organization?
So the additional cost is basically you licensed per user per year. So if you license additional users to be senders within your organization, then the cost will be associated with the user count of the sending users. So as far as the overhead, the question becomes how do you deploy the Virtru clients in your environment? And that is obviously depending on what client that we're speaking of. So from an Outlook standpoint, if you happen to be deploying Outlook users, that typically is done through group policy, through your Active Directory or group policy as they log in and installing our MSI installer for that. So the additional overhead would be simply setting up the group policies there. For if you're in a Google Apps for Work environment, since I know we have some of those folks on the phone, typically if you're under a managed Chrome environment, you would then be able to deploy the Virtru extension directly within your managed Chrome. A lot of users will sometimes set up specifically OUs that will contain those users so they can manage the deployment of the Chrome extension with that environment. But as far as overhead and server overhead or anything additional to that, not particularly. The overhead really becomes in, number one, getting the users the clients, and number two, onboarding those new users and familiarizing them with the secure email environment.
Okay, great. I'm just going to, if it's okay, run a very quick poll while we're waiting to see if any other questions are coming in. So I'm just up on the screen here. Here we go, just a really quick poll. If you guys have any other questions while we've got Brett here, please feel free to just plug them into the Q&A box. And I will just shut down this poll in a moment. Excellent. And I'll share the results really quick. So it looks like 88% says very relevant. So that is great. Okay, let me see. I think we had... Okay, can someone on the call comment on the status of this product through SIPA and how that affects the need to do RFP to be compliant with purchasing rules? Brett, are you... do you happen to know the setup there, or we can have someone from SIPA directly reach out as well?
I would recommend, since we don't personally represent SIPA here, since we're there, to actually reach out from SIPA directly. I know that we are one of the vendors on there, and then I actually spoke at the SIPA conference and going through that, so we definitely have a deep relationship with SIPA. But as far as your RFP requirements around that, I don't believe we're any different than any other vendor that's currently on that list, but I would definitely recommend reaching out to SIPA for that.
Okay, thank you. So I don't see any other questions here. What I'm going to do is I do have one more poll. Let me just launch this here. I'll give you guys a few moments to take this poll. Okay. And while we're just waiting here, I'll remind you we have recorded the session, and we'll be making sure we get this out to you guys in the next day or two, most likely tomorrow morning. Okay, so I'm just going to close the poll. And it looks like we are done for questions. So I would just like to take a moment. Thank you so much to everybody for joining us. And Brett, thank you so much for your presentation and for answering all these great questions too. So I think we're all done. So thank you so much, everybody. Look out for our email tomorrow morning. And if you have any questions in the meantime, you can either visit SIPA's website, which is posted here. Let me just post this in the chat box for you. Or you can visit us at virtru.com as well if you'd like to kind of tool around and learn a little bit more about Virtru. So thank you so much. I hope you all have a great day.